What up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Matt Wyatt. So, I recently finished all 10 episodes of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man that is streaming on Disney Plus. I was very skeptical going into the Marvel show of the animated series because I've seen the trailer and it did not really appeal to me at all. It looked really bad and mediocre. And they're literally doing this whole version of this Marvel's What If show that are spread out 10 episodes. Like, what if this version of Peter Parker that we know from the MCU is not being mentored by Tony Stark, it was mentored by Norman Osborn. And I at first I kind of liked the whole concept of it, but then as time went on, I was starting to not be interested in it. Even the trailer kind of turned me off. But then I watched the first episode, I gave it a chance, and I went in with an open mind. And I could not believe how happy that I was so wrong. This show is a banger, very much better than I thought it would be. Especially, like, I understand that the animation style is not going to be made for everybody. I understand why that they chose this animation. Like, they wanted to be more of the old school that is coming the page by page that are coming straight out of the comic book, and I thought they did it really well. Sure, there's a reason why they did it, because it was on a cheap budget. They didn't want the show to be so expensive, and this story is really about this alternate version of Peter Parker, but what if this version of Peter Parker meets up with Norman Osborn, being his own mentor figure instead of Tony Stark that we saw from Tom Holland's in the MCU as Spider-Man? And the things that I really loved and what they got right for this Spider-Man, they stayed completely faithful to who he is with his moral codes, his own thing of doing the right thing and helping out the others and helping out the neighborhood. And they really acknowledge Uncle Ben in this one, because in the MCU Spider-Man, they've never once mentioned Uncle Ben. Sure, they name drop Uncle Ben from Spider-Man No Way Home from Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker, but that's about it. But that wasn't enough. They didn't really acknowledge about Uncle Ben, Tom Holland's version of Uncle Ben. They failed to acknowledge it. They refused to, and it really, yeah, I'm not saying that they needed the whole origin story and given this whole flashback exposition. All I'm saying is that acknowledge it of what made Peter who he is now today as the hero. This, because the reason why he's the hero was because of the death of Uncle Ben. The tragedy what made him the hero today. And I thought that what they did in the show was so good. And I love that we're seeing this Peter Parker who is struggling to live a normal life as a high school student dealing with his high school problems, and also being an intern at Oscorp Industry and working for Norman Osborn, and then learning how to be Spider-Man, and then also struggling of his new friend Pearl, which is a character that I'd never heard of, but I thought the character Pearl, who is the new best friend with Peter Parker, was absolutely great in the show. She does have a little bit more of the character depth backstory, and it's really predictable that she clearly has a crush on Peter Parker. She clearly does have a crush on him. It's very predictable and so obvious, and Peter is too blind to see it. It's one of those typical coming of age story where the best friend who has a crush on him and wants to be more than friends but doesn't see the signs. That's one of those times for Peter Parker himself. But it wasn't enough to pull me out of the show. And this another character, Lonnie, which most of you don't know who he is. He's the character from the comic books that it plays Tombstone with one of Spider-Man's rogues gallery, which I don't know if this is the same version of Tombstone. I could be completely wrong, but this version of the character who goes to Peter's school, he's a football jock. And he's a poor kid from Harlem that grows up in a neighborhood Harlem. And he's not playing this stereotypical high school douchebag jock that you've seen so many times in movies and TV shows back in the early 2000s. No, he's completely the opposite. Who is a Boy Scout. He's the nicest guy in school, and he's all about trying to do the right thing. But when life gets very hard, the reason why he turns life on crime and joining the gang and getting caught up in the middle of the gang war, he's only doing it just to protect his family, including his little brother. And he has so much character depth. Yes, we get two different storylines, one from Peter Parker and one from Lonnie. And I thought that the two of them do have storylines that is completely relevant to the main story. And I love that they did a little bit different for Norman Osborn, than making him more of the mentor figure to Peter Parker. You want to trust his real intentions. His intentions is really good, but he also has an agenda for power of how he gets things done. And you don't fully trust him, which we know that it's going to lead him on the path of becoming the Green Goblin. And I thought that the voice actor who plays Norman Osborn did a great job. And I don't remember the actor's name on the top of my head, but he's coming off of his recent film called a movie called Sing Sing that got an Academy Award nomination, and he got a nomination for Best Actor, and he's an incredible actor. And I thought what he did with Norman Osborn was terrific. And speaking of Norman Osborn, we meet up with Harry Osborn, which this is going to be the brand new version of Harry Osborn that you've never seen before. A little bit different. He is coming off of being a social media influencer who is basically a celebrity around social media, and he doesn't really have as many friends. But when he meets up with Peter Parker, and I thought that the friendship really clicked. And I wasn't a big fan of how the design and the look of the character. I wasn't so sure how I felt about it, but the more I get to know him, the more he started to really grow on me, and I started to really like his character a lot. The friendship between him and Peter Parker was so believable. And spoiler alert, he finds out that he's Spider-Man a lot sooner. And now Harry and Norman now knows that he's Spider-Man. And I thought that was a great change of pace. They didn't try to follow that whole trope of him figuring out and discovering he's Spider-Man. And I thought they did it very well, and it was very well executed. And I will say that the animation style is really good. I mean, even though it's not going to be an animation style like from the movie called Across the Spider-Verse and Into the Spider-Verse, it's not going to be something that's going to be changing your life. And it has a lot of great emotional moments in the show that really worked. There were a couple of ones, but the one that really stood out to me is when he was stopping that shoplifter who was stealing money from the cash register, and comes off from being broke, and she's out of a job, she's unemployed, and she's desperate for money, but he's willing to let that slide because he knows that she's a good person who has made some terrible choices and made terrible decisions, but she's willing to turn her life around and give a second chance, and he's willing to give her a second chance. It just shows you that he is willing to make examples out of everyone, even who are the victims or the criminals. That's who Spider-Man is. He's all about giving them second chances no matter what, no matter how many times they made bad decisions in their life. He's willing to be open and give them another chance, even for someone who is beyond redemption. I thought that they did it really well, and it really stood out to me. And there was one little moment that I can't remember what the quote was on the top of my head, when he was talking to Doctor Strange on the top of the rooftop of the building, and this was in the finale, and I thought that was a great line that really like got me. And yeah, this just shows you that they are staying truly faithful to who Spider-Man is. I love that this new iteration of Aunt May, especially that she's not coming off as the hot aunt that we saw in the first two Spider-Man Homecoming and Far From Home that Marissa Tomei played. I loved her in No Way Home. I thought they used her very well in the third film, but really she was coming off as just a hot aunt, and she wasn't really the moral, emotional compass and emotional weight to Peter's life and what pushes him, keep him further of being Spider-Man and being the hero that we know and love. And I thought that what they did with her in the show was far better than I hoped it would be. The writers of the show really knew the assignment. This is what the MCU Spider-Man should have been. Look, I love No Way Home. It's the best out of the three movies in the MCU of the trilogy, of the Homecoming trilogy, and it's my favorite Spider-Man movie. And they made it more of a Spider-Man film, and it was a long origin story that was spread out in the three movies. So after No Way Home, I'm willing to give that a pass, because in the first two movies with Tom Holland and throughout the MCU, they were trying so hard to make him out to be the more Iron Man Jr., and it really just loses of who Spider-Man is. He's an independent hero. This is that's what they kind of did wrong in those movies. But No Way Home really made up for it, and I was willing to give that a pass. But overall, I really love the show. It's not perfect by any means. I do appreciate that they focus on street level stuff, especially when Lonnie, who's joining the gang and who's getting caught up in the middle of a gang war with the leader, Scorpion. I thought the Scorpion was very terrifying, and I wish that they would have used him at some point in the Spider-Man movies with Tom Holland. And he was very terrifying and very ruthless. And and I love that they've used Doc Ock in the show. He does come off with more of the classic Doc Ock that you know from the animated series from the 1990s, and I believe from the one in comic books. But he does have a little bit of a character depth where he has a lot of beef with Norman Osborn because he did him wrong. He completely threw him to the side, and now he wants to settle the score against Norman Osborn and selling like advanced text to criminals, which it is kind of adding a little bit of a parallel to the Spider-Man Homecoming. Remember Vulture, played by Michael Keaton? They kind of did something similar to that storyline where they're selling advanced tech to criminals. And I thought they did it very well in this version. And they did a shot for a shot of the Civil War scene where you see Peter Parker go into his apartment and he meets up with Tony Stark. But in this version, it's a shot for a shot, but it's more Norman Osborn instead of Tony Stark. And I thought they did a great job of doing the shot for a shot without being too much obvious and being too much of a copy and paste. But overall, I really loved it. I can't wait for season two. I believe they greenlit season three before season two even comes. And they announced that Gwen Stacy is going to be showing up in season two. So there's going to be a lot of familiar faces in season two that I cannot wait. After the end of season one, I wanted to get into the season two right away. They did a little bit of special cameos with the Marvel characters with Doctor Strange, who was coming off a little bit more of the classic version of Doctor Strange and not the MCU's version. And we got a cameo for Daredevil that is voiced by Charlie Cox, who is our new iteration of Daredevil on a television show. I thought, even though Daredevil didn't really need to be in it much, but I think that the reason why they wanted to throw in some of the cameos is to let people know that these characters exist in the same universe with Peter Parker. It still stands on its own as a standalone story and more grounded, but but they established that all these heroes exist. And I'm glad that they're focusing on street level stuff and not trying to focus on spectacle and world ending scenarios. We don't need that in the Spider-Man stories. We can let this be more of a street level and it works. And I hope that when we get to Spider-Man 4 with Tom Holland, I hope they learn something and give us a street level storyline. But I'm going to give this final verdict for Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man a 9 out of 10. It is a banger show. They release 2 episodes per week on Disney Plus, or maybe 3. I could be wrong, but it was not what I expected. But you should definitely check it out if you get a chance. All 10 episodes are streaming on Disney Plus. I think you really are gonna like it, and even if you're not looking forward to it, just give it a chance. Now, have you seen Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man? What did you think of the show? Did it surprise you, or were you someone out there that was disappointed and it wasn't for you? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you like this video, make sure you hit that like button. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell notifications so you know when my videos are up. I do Smallville podcast every Tuesday, which is a Smallville rewatch podcast. We're on to the final season of Smallville, and I can't wait. And we do a Batman Minteri, which basically we do a commentary on all the Batman movies. We've already recently wrapped up with Batman, Mr. Freeze, Sub-Zero, and we're getting on to Batman Beyond, which I can't wait. Go and check it out. It's on my YouTube playlist, and I also do Talk in Silence, where we cover the Hannibal franchise. We're already on the show called Hannibal Season 2. So if you want to check that out, it's on my YouTube playlist. I organized it so that you could be able to search for it, and that would be so difficult for you to find. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys have a great day, great evening, wherever you're from. If you want to follow my social media links, the link tree would be down in the description down below. I hope you guys stay safe and stay tuned for more of my content.